My name is Lawrence Black. Friends call me Larry. I'm just about 80 years old. It's been an interesting life. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, in an area that Yiddish probably was the language of the Chinese laundryman because he probably thought that was English. So it was 99.9% Jewish. Went to several colleges. I served in the army. Ended up in the medics, eating things that I never ate before, like bacon and ham, and it seemed to be okay. And I wasn't feeling guilty at all. Worked on projects as a writer for people like Chevrolet and Ford. I was a copywriter and also a designer. Became a remodeler because I remodeled this old classical house and made it very contemporary. Spent a lot of time in the Detroit area, then spent a great deal of time in Chicago and a lot of time in Los Angeles. It's interesting because now I'm living in Thayer, Missouri, which population of maybe 1,500. I had met a person who was into natural cleansing who lives in Thayer. I was having problems with my health, and people in Thayer would come to me because they saw I was a regular and say, "How did you ever find Thayer?" Well, one day I said, "Witness Protection Program." They looked at me, and that was the end of asking how I found Thayer. I grew up with my grandfather on my mother's side, who was a Kabbalist, which is a Hebrew mystic, was always trying to give his philosophy, his religion, his way of doing things to his grandson, and he knew it was a struggle. I became intrigued with meditation, very, very involved in it. Jesus was mentioned in name. I didn't know too much about him. I was intrigued with the venture into the temple to clean it up and get the money changers and the cattle out of it. I knew I had put myself in an area that had me on my back looking up on the ceiling, living in a small cabin, wondering, God, why am I here? Why am I here? I have a sister that I'm very close with. My oldest sister was always sticking up for me. Very, very involved in the Haitian community. And they look upon her as like grandma and love her very much. And she became involved in the Church of God, which I didn't know of at the time, in the Baltimore area. One day, out of the blue, she called up. They had researched Church of God, Thea. She said, "You've got to do this. You know I've never, ever misled you on anything." I went over to the church, and the rest is the beginning of my rebirth. No doubt, no reservations, the turning point of an 80-year walk in the wilderness. My early experiences in the church, very early, was, number one, the acceptance of everyone in the church. Everyone. It didn't matter where I was, where I came from, what I did, who I was. The acceptance was felt. And now I'm hearing about Jesus and realizing, for me, really early in, that the scriptures were coming across as a blueprint. This is how you conduct your life. This is how you do. I'm an 80-year-old baby. I mean, I'm just learning. I live in basic isolation, and I look so much forward to coming to the church. I play the mandolin. It gets me through the week. I asked to be baptized, and it's ever since that experience, it has been a very, very different. As I read a Bible which was given to me by a member of the church, I've always been a teary guy, but I'll tell you, and I tear up. It's like coming home. It's like coming home. You know, we used to have a table set on Friday with a place setting for in case a stranger would knock on the door, there'd be a place for him. There's been a place set for me, and I've knocked on the door, and the door is this church, and they've invited me to sit down, I'll be honest, at the table. And that's what this church has meant to me.